Attention all Canadians, if you have a problem with ISIS fighters returning to our great dominion without any penalty, unless enduring poetry writing classes is deemed as a punishment, then guess what? You're all a bunch of white supremacists. Says who? Says Liberal MP Chris Bittle. That's who. Well, the mollycoddling treatment of returning ISIS terrorists by the Liberal government is not sitting well with the majority of Canadians, regardless of race, religion, and gender. And some are choosing to speak out about this latest miscarriage of justice. So it was that recently a small group of protesters protested in front of the office of Chris Bittle, the Liberal MP for St. Catharines, Ontario. Bittle's response was nothing short of batshite crazy. This is what he said about Canadians conducting a peaceful protest regarding the penalty-free homecoming of Islamist thugs. Quote, "When white supremacists schedule a protest at your office, you know you're doing something right," end quote. White supremacists? What would make Mr. Bittle jump to such a perverse conclusion? Were they wearing the KKK haberdashery? Were they wearing replica Nazi SS uniforms? No, these Canadians simply had a contrary opinion to this government's hug-a-thug mentality when it comes to dealing with homegrown radical Islamists. Other than the sign about Trudeau, I'd add that so far the only other signage the so-called white supremacists carried were anti-ISIS. Have we come to the point where condemning ISIS means you're a racist? But Bittle decides to play the race card even though Islam has nothing to do with race. He name calls like a bully from a pulpit rather than a member of parliament who's expected to serve his constituents. What's more, I think his words are defamatory and libelous. I spoke to someone close to this protest, and one of the participants involved is allegedly seriously thinking about legal action given Bittle's slur. Unjustly labeling someone as a white supremacist simply for having a contrary political opinion doesn't just cross the line, it obliterates it. Bittle has been deluged with thousands of negative responses to his stance. When one person asked Bittle to put Canadians first and refuse entry to returning ISIS fighters, Bittle said, quote, "Returning fighters are Canadians who have not been charged with a crime," end quote. How disingenuous can you get? Now, it's doubtful Bittle will be punished by his superiors because we all saw how Justin Trudeau responded to Conservative leader Andrew Scheer's queries last November about returning ISIS fighters.
Mr. Speaker, it's this Prime Minister that's de-emphasizing Canadian security, and Canadians are tired of it. It was Conservatives who amended the criminal code to make it an offence to leave Canada to fight for ISIS. It was Conservatives who were focused on giving our law enforcement new tools to prosecute ISIS fighters. This Prime Minister is using a broad spectrum that includes poetry and podcasts and all kinds of counseling and group hug sessions, Mr. Speaker. When will the Prime Minister take the security of Canadians seriously and look for ways to put these ISIS fighters in jail?
Right, Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservative Party learnt nothing from the last election and the lessons Canadians taught them. They ran an election on snitch lines against Muslims. They ran an election on Islamophobia and division. And still, they play the same game trying to scare Canadians. The fact is, we always focus on the security of Canadians, and we always will, and they play politics of fear, and Canadians reject that.
So there you have it, folks, from Bittle's spittle to Trudeau's tantrums. If you all have a problem with radical Islam and how it is being dealt with in Canada, then to quote that philosopher king, otherwise known as The Rock,
"You know your damn role and shut your damn mouth."
And if you don't know your damn role and you don't shut your damn mouth regarding the radical Islam file, then be prepared to be slandered as a white supremacist, a racist, and an Islamophobe. Kind of makes you wonder whose side the Liberals are really on. For the Rebel.Media, I'm David the Menzoid Menzies. Hey folks, if you like that commentary, please consider becoming a Rebel Premium subscriber and never miss another Rebel video.